Hello, hello, and welcome back to Fing Talks, the podcast where we dive deep into the tech that is shaping the world, one conversation at a time. So I'm Nadia, and with me, as usual, my brilliant co-host,
Dalila. And Nadia, actually, I've been buzzing all week for today's episode, but just because the topic is something that affects literally everyone that is listening right now and also us, whether they realize it or not.
I mean, you're so right. Like, if you have a smart fridge, from it going, telling you that you're out of milk, or your smart doorbell recognizing your dog, the Internet of Things, the IoT, is everywhere. And it's not just our homes. I mean, it's our cities, it's our cars, it's our lives, basically.
Yeah, and exactly. And with all this convenience comes some pretty serious questions about privacy and security come up, like who's watching, why are they watching, and maybe like, is my smart kettle like planning or plotting against me? You never know, but we're about to find out. But first, let's jingle.
Jingle.
Fing Talks. Oh, Fing Talks. Yeah, clap it up. Nadia and Dolly Tech Talk that rocks.
So we've brought in the absolute best person to actually answer all of our questions regarding privacy and IoT. So we're so honored to have Dr. Maria Mandalari. Anna is an assistant professor at University College London, and she is a leading expert in everything IoT. So thank you so much, Anna, for being here today with us. We're super thrilled to have you on the show.
Thank you for hosting. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so before we get into the heavy stuff, we have a tradition here at Fing Talks that is our icebreaker. So Anna, if you could be an animal, which one would you be and why?
Good question. I'd probably be a dolphin. They are smart, social, always curious about their surroundings. I love how they communicate and work together as a group, which really reflects how I approach research in collaboration. Plus, I'm from the south of Italy, grew up looking at the Mediterranean, so the sea has always been a big part of my life. And I love swimming. I've crossed the Strait of Messina twice swimming, so I'd say being a dolphin feels like a natural fit.
Wow. So
Super cool.
in the last episodes, we've had a lot of people saying that they would be sea creatures. So I think it's very fitting in the tech world. So let's dive actually into the more fascinating and sometimes a little bit terrifying world of your work. So you've done a lot of research on the privacy and security risks of consumers with IoT devices. A lot of us at home have smart speakers or smart fridges. So, can you just walk us through a little bit your work in this area, and what's the most surprising or unexpected thing that you've discovered about the data that you're collecting, in this research?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Actually, I don't think we will have 2 hours for these questions because I have a lot of things to say about it, but I will be brief. So we started this work in 2018 when we started one of the most advanced Internet of Things tests in the world, and we bought hundreds of Internet of Things devices, starting to sniff the network traffic and see what's actually happening with our data, where the data is going, and to who. And I guess the first, not the most important, but the first result that we have is where our data were going. We saw that the majority of the server where the devices communicated were outside our privacy jurisdiction, like we have GDPR here in Europe or UK, but this wasn't the case for another jurisdiction where the data from these devices were going, that were mostly US or China, for example. So I would say one of the most surprising results was where actually our data were located and where we're going.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So I actually really enjoyed one of your papers that you co-authored, which also had a very cool title, which was Big Help or Big Brother. So it was about AI assistants, and many of us are actually using these for everything, basically. What are the main privacy concerns that users should be aware of when they interact with AI assistants? And beyond the user awareness, what role should manufacturers and regulators play in order to to be sure that these are transparent and also trustworthy?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Yeah, so this is one of the papers that I'm most proud of, and it's one of the recent. So what happened is that basically we built an automated methodology for understanding how these browser AI assistants, browser AI extension behave. And what we discovered is that, so our research question was, are they are doing personalization, are they doing profiling and tracking? And unfortunately for us and for the users, the answers to these research questions were yes. So basically, how we discover, we treated these AI extensions as a black box, and we discovered that how they work. They take screenshots of what you are doing continuously in your browser, send the screenshots to the server, analyze the results, and then send it back the actions that you may have done. The main problem is that they really don't stop. So at some point, these AI assistants, when there is something sensitive about the user, like for example, you are opening your bank account in your browser and you have the login and the password for it, this should be recognizable locally by the AI assistant, and they should in some way stop. And this is what some of the assistants do, but some of others, they don't do it. So it means that they collect really everything, including uh, personal information, like, for example, your health data or your username and passwords sent to their server. Of course, there is no way for us to know what they're doing with this data after this, but for sure, we know that they collect it. Another things that we discover is that based on the prompts that you're giving to them, they profile and personalize you. So based on the prompt, they know your age, your preferences, and then they craft this even with other accounts, even if you're not using the same account as the one you were doing the prompting, they craft response that are tailored for this. So this is not a problem until they tailor the response to a specific user. But what happens if in the future they want, let's say, to influence some choices of a set of users? They have all this information. They can do it in the future. So the main problem is this mass profiling that we may have by revealing everything that we have and everything that we know to this AI assistant.
But do you think this is something that is kind of, you can get around it with, say, maybe creating multiple accounts with, like 10-minute mails, or with emails that kind of don't go back to you? Or would they still profile it via browser?
This is what we did. So we tried to prompt using different accounts, but because your browser has not only the user agent as for fingerprinting, but many other elements, like, for example, the way you use your browser, the IP address, other characteristics that help them to profile, then they can still redirect that response to a single user. Yeah, back to you.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think that is also a huge concern of the present, and also of the future, of how you can actually regulate all of this. Mm-hmm. But speaking of data and kind of going back to the IoT sphere, you've also written about the non-essential traffic of IoT devices, right? So can you just explain, what do you mean by non-essential traffic? And, what are some of the most common examples that the average user can actually relate to with their devices of this non-essential traffic?
Yeah, so what we did in this particular research, we took all the devices we have in the lab and sniff all the destinations that they were contacted. And we saw that there were many. It depends on the kind of devices. So for example, a plug may contact less destinations, while a smart TV might contact more destinations. And then what we did, we basically block the destination one by one. So we had a list of destinations contacted by the devices. We blocked them one by one. And then we basically list the ones, even if the destination was blocked, if we tested if automatically if the devices was still working. If the devices was still working and we blocked the destination, it means that the destination is non-essential because we can use our devices even with the destination blocked. So why it was there? We discovered that we did an analysis on traffic pattern for non-essential destinations, and we discovered that the majority of these destinations that were blockable are basically third parties, like, for example, Google Analytics, or in some case, for example, for the smart TV, Netflix or Facebook. The majority were not third party, but we discovered also like first party destinations, so destinations that are related to the manufacturers. And we don't really know why these destinations are contacted and they are not used by the device. They are non-essential, but it can be a risk for the user because who knows which kind of information can be sent through the destinations.
It's an open door.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
it's like someone is spying you constantly. Okay, so I'm also really curious about like replay attacks, right? So it almost sounds like what we were saying, like straight out of like a spy movie. Can you explain to us, because we're not experts, and also to our listeners in simple terms, what that is and how it affects smart home devices?
Yeah. So until now we talk about privacy, right? And we saw that there are a lot of problems. But okay, privacy somehow. For privacy, we are somehow protected because we have regulations, we have GDPR. But what happens when these devices are like vulnerable to security attacks? This is when really we are in danger, right? Because also these devices can be placed in contexts that are very critical, like, for example, smart hospitals, or like in the case of a specific example of reply attacks, they can be some devices that we have in our home, like a garage door opener, can be vulnerable to reply attacks. What reply attack means? So imagine that your device is working fine, and you are able to listen. This is an easy task to do. An attacker is able to listen to all the traffic that the device is sending over the internet. And with this traffic the device is sending over the internet, the device is able to do specific task. Like, for example, I'm sending some traffic, and the user is able to control the devices for open the garage in case of a garage smart door opener, right? And this is all this traffic is actually encrypted. Okay, so an external hacker cannot see what the device is done. But with reply attack, this doesn't matter. An external attacker, even if cannot see what the device is sending because the traffic is encrypted, capture the traffic from the device, replay the traffic to the device, and then the device magically activates. And this happens because the device doesn't have authentications mechanism every time different for every time it receives an request.
So it's always the same. It's always the same mechanism. So any kind of request, be it an attack or be it a normal request, because I'm using it, it still has the same mechanism of replying to it.
So basically what's happened is that what should happen, and for some devices this is the case, because only 50% of the devices where it is still a big number, were vulnerable to reply attacks in our lab. What will happen is that if I'm replying the traffic, the device shouldn't respond to me, should have different authentication mechanisms every time. For the devices that are vulnerable to reply attack, I can capture the traffic, replay to the device, and the device will respond because they don't have different authentication mechanism every time. So this is what a reply attack is. And we saw that 50% of the devices we have in the lab are vulnerable to this kind of attack. It's crazy number.
That's a lot. But like, why do you think this happens? Like, why would manufacturers not, give basically put in place a different way, a different reply mechanisms for each request? Is it a money concern? Is it too expensive, or is it convenient for them?
Yeah, so there are a lot of explanation. One is that the majority of these devices are like white label. This means that they are not manufactured by the manufacturer itself, but by some other firm. It is very cheap, and probably they don't even know that this mechanism is in place, and they resell to various manufacturers. So it's not made on purpose. And so security comes with a cost in terms of overhead and security of the hardware itself. So sometimes some devices or manufacturers they needs to decide to be more secure or more expensive, and because it's a very competitive market out there, the majority decide to be less secure.
Yeah.
So I mean, and for like the average homeowner, like what would you suggest in case of an immediate danger? Like what would be the measure to protect themselves from this?
So at the moment, the good news is that we live in Europe, and in Europe, in 2027, we will have a new regulation. We have a new regulation coming up that is Cyber Act that we work as for privacy, the GDPR. So every devices will need to be security by default, demonstrate that it's secure. An example, secure against the reply attacks. So every devices will come with a label, will come with a certification, with a self-assessment in which they declare that they are compliant with the baseline security requirements from these regulations. So hopefully after 2027, all the users in Europe at least will be already protected by these regulations. Another thing is to install in their home tools that allow them, to understand the kinds of data that are sent by these devices. An example would be Fing, for example, Fingbox, or cybersecurity solutions that allow them to visualize peaks of traffic or, let's say, security problems, even for non-expert users. But the most of the incentive to be secure really need to come from government. So in thanks to this luckily we are in Europe, the cybersecurity act will come up, but I really hope that the other countries will also follow the effort of Europe, and we will have a world that is secure by default for these devices everywhere.
That's definitely the hope. So Anna, we have one last question, also because we don't want you to get sick for this interview. So you mentioned earlier also attacks on medical devices. So the health industry is something that is also advancing from a technological point of view. And we're all wearing fitness trackers or smartwatches, right? So there's a huge peak right now in everything that is wearable devices. And your research has also looked at the security of medical wearables. What are some of the biggest vulnerabilities that you found in these devices? What are the potential risks? And the data that they're collecting, is it something that is related to blood sugar readings or heart rate? And is this kind of data, actually valuable in terms of when an attack happens, and how can a user detect if something is going wrong with their wearables?
Yeah, a good question. So this is also one of our recent research. So with very briefly, we just Bluetooth adapter. So this is a little bit different from other smart home, because the other smart home devices, they are all connected to usually Wi-Fi. So they data travel from the device to the internet. In this case, we're talking about most of the time Bluetooth low energy devices in which the range of coverage in terms of connectivity is 20 meters. But in our lab, we just a Bluetooth adapter that cost literally $15. We were able to intercept the traffic that comes from these glucose sensors, wearable sensors that you have, and usually they are connected to an insulin pump. So how these wearable devices work is like they do the reading of your level of sugar, and then they send through the phone or directly to the insulin pump this data that is able to inject automatically the level of insulin that you need to survive if you are suffering, for example, of diabetes. What happened with this research is that we discovered that we could do many attacks on these devices with just using this $50 adapter. We could manipulate the data, we could read the data, and potentially then killing someone if we were in the cover of like 20 meters from them with this adapter. So this is very concerning. And in fact, this is so concerning that at University College London, also decided to do a security system for solving this problem. That is an hardware that connects to the glucose sensors and protect the user by adding another level of security communication with the insulin pump or with the phone, by using as a second factor authentication the signal that your body is producing. This is a work in progress, so stay tuned for more on this work.
Sounds very, very interesting and also very scary because, when it comes to people's health and, like one thing is simply a hacker attack. We're getting more and more used to being hacked and having our data being breached in other companies. So it's something that people have been used to for the last 5-10 years. But when it comes to personal health and, with such high risks of having someone that, a diabetic that would literally die because they don't get the insulin in time, that's kind of scary.
Bit worrying.
Yes, definitely a big concern.
Okay, so Anna, thank you.
Thank you so much.
This has been like really an eye-opening conversation. So we thank you for sharing your insights with us and for also all the incredible work that you're doing, because you're
protecting us.
Exactly. You're moving the world forward, which is very, very interesting. So thank you. Also, we really need to be smarter about our security and our privacy, considering what is actually going forward right now. So we'll definitely do that, and we actually suggest to do the same to our listeners.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's been a really big pleasure. We hope to see you in Rome.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you.
So a huge thank you to Anna for being so generous with her time. We really appreciate it. And to all of our listeners, you can find links to Anna's research in the description and a lot of more information about Internet of Things and all of the privacy concerns that we just discussed, and her research as well. So we actually highly encourage you to check it out. It's pretty good literature, and you'll definitely learn something new.
Did you know all of this stuff or not?
I mean, to be honest, some of it, but again, I'm not that good with digital security.
Yeah, but you don't tell me your passport's all is saying you're not supposed to do that.
No, I'm not supposed to do that.
But you do that, don't you?
I stopped doing it. I promise that I stopped doing it.
Okay, fine. But anyways, that's all that we have for today's episode of Fing Talks. Let's not forget the other part. So let us know in the comment what you think about today's topic. And of course, stay curious, stay connected, but most importantly,
you got to stay secure. So don't forget to subscribe, share it with your friends and with your families and with whoever you think needs kind of like a brush up in the digital security section of their digital library or whatever.
Yeah.
So we'll see you in a couple of weeks with a whole new episode of Fing Talks.
Bye.
Ciao.